afternoon, everybody. It is July 10th, 2024 for our regular City Commission meeting. Let's start with roll call, please.
Mayor Skidmore.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen.
Present.
Commissioner Kaler.
Present.
Commissioner Clayton. And Commissioner Crowley.
Present.
Present.
Oh, there he is. We're all here, I guess. Good. I'm just glad everybody's here, and as well as watch on social media and here in our forum here. I want to make sure everybody feels welcome and always attuned to what we're talking about, especially today when we're talking about your taxes. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Reverend Bob Corey.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bob Kohlrich. It's good to be with you this afternoon. Would you bow with me in prayer? God of justice and mercy, thank you for the gift of life. Thank you for the opportunity to serve the people of Ottawa. And Heavenly Father, help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and respect. Holy and loving God, give us a spirit of service. Remind us that we are stewards of your power and authority. And Heavenly Father, guide us to be the leaders your people need. Help us, Lord, to see the humanity and the dignity and the worthiness of all, even those who may disagree with us. May we, God, treat all persons, no matter how strong or weak, rich or poor, with the reverence your creation deserves. And now, Master of the universe, renew us with the strength of your presence and grant us the joy of helping to build a community worthy of all those we serve. We ask all this, Lord, as your sons and daughters, and we give you praise for your goodness and love. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it, Pastor Bob. Let's go on to public comments. Do we have any today?
We have two registered. The first one is Linda Bishop.
Okay. Linda here. Okay, come on up. Let me just read this statement here before you start, and we'll get you going here. Subject to the above restrictions, persons who wish to address City Commission regarding items on the agenda may do so at the agenda item is called. Persons who wish to address the City Commission regarding items not on the agenda and that are under the jurisdiction of the City Commission may do so at this time when called upon by the mayor. Comments on personnel matters and matters pending in court or with other outside tribunals are not permitted. Speakers limited to 3 minutes. Any presentation is for information purposes only. The governing body will take comments under advisement. And so, Ms. Bishop, go right ahead.
Okay. My name is Linda Bishop, and I live on the north end of Ottawa. I've lived there for 50 years, so it is my home and my neighborhood. But we have a recurring problem with pit bulls running the streets. I made my first call to the police in February when two of them killed my neighbor's cat. They were dragging it down beside our garage when I caught them. Of course, they run off. And I know there has been several arrests and some dogs have been taken. It happened to Vicki Moore not long ago. She lives a block north of me. They drug my cat off the patio 2 days ago, pulled her apart and killed her. I understand there might be an arrest in that, but it's reoccurring. The dogs leave and go out in the country or to a friend's house, and then they come back. And something needs to be done. There's a lot of little old ladies that walk their dogs on leashes, and these dogs are aggressive. A child is not safe. So I don't know. I am not up on the ordinance of pit bulls. I don't know how these people keep getting them. They let them loose at night. They've been at our house before when they killed my cat, they were at our house at 6 o'clock in the morning, 3 mornings straight. They run Julie's cat up the tree. They were after it and almost caught it. So, and I know you say it's a cat, but I'm retired, and she grew up with the grandkids. They pull her in the wagon. They pull her up and down the hallway in the laundry basket. And it's just not right to fear for your animals in your own yard when they pull them off the patio chairs. So these people need to be fined more, or put in jail more, or not to have any more dogs, or no dogs at all, but something needs to be done.
Very good.
Okay? Does anybody have any?
Thank you. I'll say two things about that. There's two laws being violated here. If they are pit bulls, those are illegal in town, and
Well,
they're to be on leashes. Two things there,
Mhm.
and two violations there. So I have zero tolerance, like you say, for this kind of offense.
Yeah. And I don't know if they're mixed. They look like pit bulls. One was gray and one was brown. It had a little white throats. And I don't know if that makes a difference, but it shouldn't, because they were really aggressive.
No, they're vicious dogs, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
And by the time we ran our cat up to Overland Park emergency vet, she was crying in pain for 30 minutes. I mean, they just about pulled her apart. And it's just, it's not acceptable, and I'm not going to let her die in vain.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it, Mrs. Bishop.
Thank
We'll
you.
certainly look into this, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. We have been working this, and our CSO Alexander is actively addressing the issue. And as she had indicated, one owner had been arrested on unrelated charges to this, but both of these animals are under process of being removed from the city in accordance with our current municipal code.
Very good.
So will they be able to come back to the city?
No, ma'am, and they shouldn't have been allowed here if that process is followed in accordance with our code. And so one of the things that we will look at doing too is educating through social media to ensure that folks understand, if they see a dog at large in general, what to do and how to report it.
Very good.
And I know some of these people, and I know their lifestyle, and they get up at night, and that's when they let the dogs out.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sorry for your loss too. I mean, we've got a cat too, and I know what you mean. So it's like part of the family. So I'm sorry for your loss. We'll look into. We're gonna get it done. We'll fix this thing.
Okay.
It's gone on too long. Thank you very much for being here and willing to speak to us on that behalf. Thank you. Other comment?
Another one, Bud Bishop.
Okay, Bud.
All I want to say is the dogs that were involved in this, it's not the first time. Now, I'm from the country, out at Imes, little town east of Ottawa. We raise hunting dogs, stag hounds, coon dogs, coyote dogs, the whole 9 yards. Those dogs are trained to kill. And yet they was always on chains, always in a pen, always controllable. Now, I don't care whose dogs, if a person cannot control their dogs, they shouldn't have dogs. In this town, there should be a leash law anyway. There's 20 people. I live at Wilson, 204 East Wilson. That's where we're from. And there's numerous people walking up and down that sidewalk going to Casey's. Wilson's a very traveled street. There's the little lady walks her little collie every day. She's 80 years old. And she carries a little stick to fend these dogs off with. Now, that's not part of the deal. Either the dogs are kept on chains, pins, or whatever, or when they are out, they should be on a leash. If a police officer sees a dog running wild, loose, or whatever, I truly believe it's their job and the regular owners. But the main thing is, people, I had dogs that were trained to kill. We controlled them. The people that have dogs and they're saying, oh, we're just picking on them. No, they need to go after the people that don't understand the leash law also. I'm not against the person owning the dog. I'm against the person that doesn't control their dogs.
Very good, Mr. Bishop, well said. I agree. Any others? Just those? Okay, very good. All right, we will go on with our meeting. We don't have anything for item number 7, but we do have the consent agenda, which would be the minutes from the June 26, 2024 City Commission meeting, as well as minutes from the advisory board. In our packet, do we have approval for the agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner,
I move that we approve the consent agenda as listed.
is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we'll go on to declaration. At this time, I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Hearing none, go on to item 10, which is unfinished business, and none there. So we'll go on to number 11.
Item A, interview for Ottawa Memorial Advisory Board, and the first one is Nicole Smith.
Okay, and Nicole, you here? You have to come on the podium. The auditorium seems to be a popular place where people want to volunteer, so thank you for that. And I know we have a vibrant auditorium going on right now. Tiffany's done a great job there, lots of activities. And I'm honored that you want to be a part of that process, so I'm glad you're here for this. We're just gonna ask you some simple questions, not hard questions, they're just questions about yourself so we can get an idea of who you are and what you represent. So why don't we start with Commissioner Commissioner Crowley, that guy.
Kayla, you
We're
want to
all
start?
C's, we're all C's.
We make it
This way.
difficult.
We're all
The guy in the
C's.
blue shirt here.
Yeah.
Okay, you go first.
All right. Nicole, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, good. Tell me why you'd like to serve on the Ottawa Municipal Auditorium Advisory Board.
I had served on the board several years ago, and due to my employment at the time, I wasn't able to fulfill my obligations, so I stepped away. I enjoyed my time while on the board, and I looked forward to a time when I could get back on the board.
Great, thank you.
All right. Pro Tem Allen, are you on? You want to ask the next question?
I'll do the one after that. Let me pull them up.
Go right ahead. Okay. Pro Tem Allen, are you still there?
Yes. What specific skills, qualifications, and experience can you bring to the advisory board?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. She said what specific skills, qualifications, and experience can you offer to the advisory board?
In the past, I've been on other committees. I've fulfilled my duties with those. I'm people-oriented.
Well, the good skills, you got to have that. I'll get the next one here. Let me just ask you this. What role do you see the advisory board serving for the auditorium?
I think the advisory board does a great job bringing new entertainment and activities to the city through the OMA, and I'd look forward to being part of that where we can bring even more activities into the community.
Sounds good. Commissioner Kaler.
Nikki, thank you for being here, and I refuse to call you Nicole. So I've known Nikki for years, so I'm so glad to see you as an applicant. So thank you. And I know it can be nerve-wracking to come up here and ask a bunch of questions. It's almost like you're on a job interview. It's not really. We just really appreciate individuals who want to get involved in the city. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
How do you think that the auditorium serves the needs of Ottawa citizens?
I've seen it grow since I've been in the community now 12 years, and I've seen what a vast improvement it's had over the years. I think it brings not just local members to the auditorium, but surrounding areas as well.
Very good. Commissioner Clayton.
I will say, Nicole, since we're not on a first name basis, thank you for being here. Especially since you've been on and off. In that time and now, what changes or improvements would you recommend to the city for the auditorium?
They've made such vast improvements over the last just year even. I just like to see it grow even bigger, bringing more into the community.
Great. Last question.
Oh, it's the best one.
Yeah, the easiest question, I guess. With regard to no concern for money, what show would you like to come to see at the Ottawa Memorial Auditorium?
No money.
Money's not an issue.
Money is no
money's
object.
not
You have
an issue. Oh,
Unlimited
wow.
budget.
Taylor Swift.
I thought you were gonna say
I think there's a
Travis
lot of
Kelce's
tax
girlfriend.
revenue that we would be
Okay.
happy to have.
Okay. We thought we had Tammy Swift coming at one point, but we found out she's a stepsister. She couldn't come, but that was a different story. So, all right, we're good there. What we'll do, we'll take this under consideration. We've got another interview coming up. I guess we've got actually there's 2 openings and 2 applicants, 2 openings. Okay, that's a good sign right there, I'd say. So we'll go ahead and go to the next one. And thank you very much for your contribution, Nicole.
The next one is Keith Shrimpton.
All right, Keith.
Hello.
Okay, Keith, good.
Hi.
Glad to see you up to the podium.
Yes.
I've never met you before, but I recognize your last name. Would be Tom, would be a relative?
Are you thinking Shrimplin?
Oh, okay.
It's Shrimpton. We've met through strange encounters, but yeah, that
Different
often
name.
happens.
Okay,
Yeah.
I missed that up. Yeah, very good. Let's start off with Mr. Clayton this time.
Okay, good. It's good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Good to see you.
Why do you want to serve on the OMA Advisory Board?
Because I think that things like community theater in general are incredibly important for communities, and I think it's always been something that societies have used to keep people together, and these are very divisive times, so I think it's an incredibly important role for the community.
Okay, Commissioner Kaler.
Good point. Hi, Keith.
Hi.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
I see you work for the Winter Center for Restorative Justice. I'm really
Yes.
excited to see you in our community and see you active in our community. That's a good thing.
Thank you.
Tell me about, and you already heard the question, so it's not like you didn't already get a preview.
Yeah.
Nikki took them first. You get the same ones.
Okay.
So how do you think the auditorium serves the needs of citizens of Ottawa?
I think through ways that are often overlooked. I think that particularly like bringing people together, entertainment is a great way to do that. And I'm a huge fan of theater in general, and so I've always seen the behind the scenes and just how cast members and things like that can really just become a family. And I think that would be my answer to that.
Okay, I'll get the next one then. You heard earlier before, but what role do you see the advisory board serving for the auditorium?
Talking about how to develop, I guess. I think Tiffany and everybody that serves on the board has done an incredible job with it up to this point. I have not been particularly involved with the OMA up until a couple months ago, or actually, it's been a couple of years now. It's been a long time now, just through volunteering and stuff, and seeing how it's just grown into this central community activity center. I think it's, again, like I've said several times, I think it's incredibly important.
Very good. Okay, Pro Tem Allen.
What changes or improvements would you recommend to the city regarding the auditorium?
I think more emphasis on the importance of it in our community. Again, it's often overlooked. I think some might consider it to be like the newspaper, a dying, form of art or connection, but I don't think that has to be the case, and I think it should be more prominent in the way that people view it, I guess.
Very good. And Commissioner Crowley.
Keith, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
What needs of the citizens of Ottawa do you see the auditorium serving?
Release from the daily anxious grind that I think everybody sort of exists in nowadays, and I think that that's what it is. I think that's what it's always served as a place to escape, spend time with family, friends, and connect.
One additional question. Have you lived in Franklin County your whole life?
Yes, most of my life. There was a year I lived in Gardner.
I'm just
Yes.
trying to age you because
I'm 29.
It's always good to see a younger generation kind of get involved into, like you say, a dying kind of thing that Tiffany's done a great job reviving.
Absolutely, yes.
And we're all excited about the job that she's done. It's just you always see, you always liken it to the kind of the older crowd.
I know, right?
And things like that. So it's
It's a
always
shame.
wonderful to see young folks like you getting involved.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Very diverse board, and that's always good to see. So, how about the last question you heard earlier? No budget concerning. What show would you like to have come?
I like Noah Kahn. Noah Kahn. He's sort of a newer voice in the industry, I guess, and I think he's.
I don't know who that is. Okay.
Maybe our
Zach
budget
might know.
allows it.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. He's actually he's blown up.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
A couple years ago, maybe.
We can do some fundraising. We'll figure something out.
Noah Khan's cousin.
Yes. Well, at the end of the meeting, we're going to discuss these applications, and we'll certainly let you both know. So thank you very much for your
Thank
interview.
you.
You did a good job,
Yes.
and we'll let you know.
Thank you.
Thank you both. And you can stay as long as you want to. It's a very exciting meeting.
It's very.
We'll go on to the presentation from the Ercoupe Corporate Convention, Ottawa Municipal Auditorium. Jimmy Reeder, got some help there. Jack too.
Mayor Skidmore, Commissioners, thank you for inviting me to come talk about the one of the events we've recently had at the airport. We're trying to have more events that the public can be invited out to and come have a good meal fixed by the aviation explorers and walk around and watch aerobatics or whatever we're having there that time. But what we're going to talk about this time, what I've been invited to visit with you about, is the Ercoupe National Convention. So someone might say, well, what's an Ercoupe? So Ercoupes are a vintage, small, single-engine, low-wing aircraft that carry 2 people. And just like Model Ts and Model As and 57 Chevys and Corvettes, there are people who love to own and maintain and fly Ercoupes. They were designed in the early 40s, but because of World War II, didn't go into mass production until 1946, right after World War II was over. And they're a little unique. You know, I'm sure we've all seen pictures of what people back then envisioned life to be like today, and there would be a flying car in everybody's driveway and that sort of thing. And so the Ercoupe was a little unique. You can see it has a twin tail, but it was also designed to be a little easier to fly. It was, I think they just, matter of fact, if you're driving it around on the ground, taxiing it, you use what people would call the steering wheel to steer it with, just like a car. And so, and their marketing was a little unique too. You could actually order one from the Sears catalog. As a matter of fact, the fly-in that we had at our National Ercoupe Convention in June, one of the examples there spent 1946 sitting at the Macy's department store in New York City as their demo model. So planes started arriving on June the 12th, and we're here through the weekend. In all, we had 20 planes that flew in with a total of about 60 people who attended. Because of weather and or whatever other reasons, probably 3 times as many people showed up that were with it than airplanes, but 20 airplanes showed up. Over 20 states were represented, the furthest away from New Jersey. It resulted in 40 3-night hotel rooms being used, an estimated 720 meals being served, either at Ottawa University's banquet or the Explorers or local restaurants. The courtesy car was used the entire time. Aviation fuel was sold. Extra hangar space was provided by Dodson Aviation. The first day they took a tour of McFarlane Aviation. It's a company that produces aircraft parts and it's located in Vinland. They also took a tour of, well, they had a luncheon at Primetime Grill. They visited Dodson Aviation at the facility at Rantoul later that afternoon. Dinner at the airport catered by Pizza Village and served by the Aviation Explorers. And then Saturday, they flew. A fly-in breakfast was provided for the public. People got to come out and have the breakfast and walk around and look at all of the Ercoupes and talk to people. It was a good success that day. The members went to the Amelia Earhart Museum in Atchison, and then had a sack lunch there and came back and had a banquet that night at Ottawa University. Sunday morning, everybody got up and had donuts and coffee and headed back and towards home. I also was fortunate enough to meet a couple, Bruce Bennett and Billy, his wife, who live over close to Lewisburg. They have an Ercoupe, and I've been doing maintenance on their airplane for the last 5 years. And they're the ones that, they love our airport. They love just the setting and the way it looks, the fact that the kids are there and able to provide help for events. We have the Civil Air Patrol that come down here and help also. and they were hoping that maybe this year we could have the Ercoupe convention at our airport, and it worked out, and it was a good success. And our next event will be the monthly fly-in breakfast that's this coming Saturday. So I would encourage anyone who can to come. And our next big event will be the Ottawa Airport Days, the third Saturday in August. So unless anyone has any questions that I'd love to try to answer, I guess this concludes my presentation.
When I stopped out there, I was talking to one of the pilots, and they described it as a flying convertible. In essence, I guess it's kind of what it is, with take the top off and fly that way. Very interesting aircraft. I just think it's fascinating how geographically blessed we are to have McFarland nearby, Dawson Aviation. There's only a few like him in the world, I think, as far as parts of that size of an operation, and the Amelia Earhart Museum. So we're very well located to have this. I'm surprised it's taken so long for them to find us, I guess. But
we are. And, you mentioned a convertible. It also, back in the 30s and 40s, cars that didn't have a back seat were referred to as coupes. Well, this is a coupe, but it flies, so it's an Ercoupe. Okay. So that's
great. Well, fantastic. Any other questions anybody have or comments?
Is this something that goes on every year around the country, and they just selected us?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So we hope to maybe someday have them back.
That's great. That's great. I saw you had one from Oregon coast. What city was that? Was that Coos Bay or nearby?
I'm not sure about that.
I just saw that on the map there, but fantastic. So they come a long way to fly.
Yep, that's right.
Fantastic. Any other questions or comments? Well, Jimmy, good job on the presentation. Is also, especially on the day, there are a lot of people from town also come out to witness this and to see that as well. So a very well attended event, well advertised. And Jack, thank you for all your work too. I know you worked hard on this as well. So congratulations to both of you. Good job. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will go on to along with that, airport master plan. It looks like we've got a design request for qualifications. We've got a request for approval to select Alfred Benish and Company as the consultant for airport improvements projects following the RFQ process. And City Manager Silcott.
Thank you, Mayor and City Commission, and want to thank Jim and Jack both for their work. And I'm also envious of Jack, who recently got to fly and dock the B-29. So we should probably ask him about that Saturday at the breakfast, because I know it used to fly over our home west of Wichita, and just to imagine the sky full of those things is, impressive to think about. We'll continue to reach for the stars here with an aviation theme before we get into the budget. This is part of the regular FAA process and implementation of the master plan. And what staff's recommendation will be to select Alfred Bench and Company as the consultant for the Ottawa Municipal Airports projects based upon their submission and response to our RFQ for the construction, administration, and design process in accordance with the FAA procurement process. The RFQ was issued on March 25th, and that can be found in your packet as exhibit item 11C1 with a deadline of May 3rd, 2024. And again, this is to comply with our FAA program funding requirements, as well as other infrastructure grants and KDOT aviation grants as well. And it specifically identifies 3 projects: the parallel taxiway reconstruction, that's estimated to be $3.5 million in the current year, and then eventually T-hangars with associated tarmac and taxi lanes, estimated at a price currently of just over $1 million, and then eventually a maintenance hangar at about $500,000. Our sole respondent was Bench & Company. However, they have currently provided services for the city since 2016, and having had other cities that I've managed. Unless there's a master plan up for grabs, these are pretty well stuck to the original master plan engineer. So that's why we didn't receive anything on that. Again, despite being the only respondent, they met all of the evaluation criteria and are deemed capable of successfully implementing and completing the provisions of these projects in accordance with the FAA and Kansas Department of Transportation Aviation Bureau's programs. Some of the evaluation criteria generally grouped is the capability to perform all of the projects, recent experience and familiarity with Ottawa's airport, knowledge of the FAA's regulations, policies, and procedures for both the administration of the projects as well as financial compliance for reimbursement of expenditures, etc., and quality of projects previously completed. The projects are essential for maintaining and enhancing our airport infrastructure, and they assist us in improving operational efficiency and supporting future aviation demand to ensure that our execution of these projects and programmings gets KOWI, which is our identifier, up to the highest standards, and also will help us maximize and leverage outside dollars with our local dollars with respect to federal and state funding. Again, this is for our FAA Airport Improvement Program, the Bipartisanship Infrastructure Bill, and the Kansas Airport Improvement Program funding. Those are the projects. Those are outlined in our long-term CIP and our 2017 master plan, and they're necessary over the 20-year horizon. We provide an executive, or I should say a summary of the executive summary and a link to the full project in your agenda report, and that can also be accessed directly by clicking the link to the website, and that's through item 11C3. Legal considerations are to approve as to form, and of course all of our contracts and agreements will be ran through legal prior to both the request for proposal for any projects and obviously for the execution of those agreements accordingly. And so are there any questions for staff or our airport board members who are present?
What was the total cost of the consultation contract?
Well, it would be on a per capita or individualized.
So each job has a separate price.
Exactly, and so like this parallel construction way, that is a $3.5 million project for construction estimate. We've recently spent $196,982 for the design of this reconstruction. It was originally slotted for rehabilitation. However, the surface degradation was such that unfortunately it had been to such a point that we needed to go ahead and conduct a full reconstruction rather than a rehabilitation.
That part of that total, of course, gets paid through FAA and also KDOT.
Yes.
Combination. Okay.
And the way this is structured in your current CIP is we would be utilizing a combination of local dollars, the state dollars, and also seeking additional assistance through federal legislation and or funding corridor opportunities that we might have. In the absence of actually having that additional federal assistance, we would essentially need to conduct that project a bite at a time, if you will. So that would extend the rehabilitation from a 1-year process to an 8 to 10 years at most, depending upon costs and how that would be extended out. So trying to leverage these outside dollars is something that we're really focused on. And I know we're working both with Mr. Reeder, our fixed base operator, our local congressional delegation, and Melissa's also seeking additional grant opportunities as well.
Very good. Anybody have any more questions of our city manager on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I make the motion we approve item 11C on our agenda.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Any other discussion on this? If not, let's take a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Mayor Pro Tem Allen?
Yes, sorry.
Commissioner Clayton?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
And Mayor Skidmore?
I'll vote yes too. That motion carries. Thank you. Good job. Item D.
Review of the 2025 operating budget review.
First one.
Franklin County Emergency Communications budget.
Very good. Do we have someone from Franklin County, or you're gonna do it, Melanie? Okay, very good.
Actually, if you don't mind, I know we had them listed individually, but really it's just in order of the presentation. So if you don't mind, we'll just move through all of the funds and have a few comments and ask questions, I guess, as we move through each fund. And I did not realize it when I put it together, but there's 29 slides, so that's a lot. So much of it is a repeat of what was already in the memo and in your packet, and probably things that you've already heard or know about these funds. So we'll move through them fairly quickly and then just answer all the questions that you might have, if that's okay. This is one of your final budget presentations. This is an opportunity for us to share with you the funds that have a mill levy impact or an ad valorem tax revenue base or source to them. And there's 4 funds that are impacted by ad valorem taxes in your mill rate. And we'll cover all 4 of those today. The 3 that are city service related are at the recommendation of your city manager, and they're based on the priorities that have been set for your city services. This is just a repeat of what we looked at last week, or last time we talked about budget. July 17th is your last opportunity to review the mill levy funds and determine whether or not you intend to exceed the revenue neutral rate. After that point, we wait all the way till September until we hold our public hearing, and that's when you'll make your final determination on budget. But the opportunity to determine if you intend to exceed that rate is next Wednesday. The date to that we're required to report it to Franklin County is July 20th. So it's 3 days later. So that's the last opportunity to discuss that topic. It does not mean that we could not, after that we've published the budget, lower the mill levy, the mill rates for each individual fund, but you would not have the opportunity to increase them once we've published that. The discussion topics today in the 4 funds, but really 5 topics, is how the 911 budget or the Franklin County Emergency Communications budget impacts our general fund. And I will touch on that for you and give you an update on the amounts, but we will have someone from their offices here at one of our next meetings to talk about the impact of their budget and their operations and give you an update and report for that as well. And then the other four topics are the mill levy funds. All right, so the 911 budget is one that annually we've discussed and you see in your general fund budget. It appears in our non-operating division. And this year, the budget that was submitted was in your packet as an exhibit. And it is an increase of $47,500 or an 8.11% increase, largely related to personnel increases and benefit increases is what was reported to us. A couple of points about this budget in general is that we do cost share with the county. Wellsville is also a contributor to the overall cost of the dispatch center. The city of Ottawa pays 50% of their annual budget, the annual budget for the emergency communications. And then beginning in 2023, and in that table, oops, so sorry about that. In this table, you see where they do refund back 50% of the remaining funds to the city each year. We don't know what that amount will be this year. Their audit has not yet been complete, but should be done in about 30 days.
But we get one each year?
Beginning last year was the first year that we received a refund. So last year it was just over $34,000, and I have not received any indication of what the amount is for this year. And those funds, because they're received the year after they're spent, they go back into the general fund as a miscellaneous revenue.
Okay, I was thinking in the past that we had 50% of the wages or the salaries, but this says 50% of the annual budget.
We are responsible for 50% of the entire budget.
The entire budget?
Yes.
Okay. Is that new?
No.
I thought it was just on the salaries. And so we're talking on the budget that I'm seeing here, requested budget 1.266 million.
Yes.
Half of that is like
633,422, and the very bottom on the left in that table. Mm-hmm.
However, the county does not pay half because Wallsville does pay part. So the county is not paying a complete half. But
Correct.
I know that 911 can certainly address that.
And I would suggest to you that we're paying 3/4. Here's how I get that. If we're paying half, and our citizens in Ottawa pay Franklin County taxes as well, and the county, approximately half the population of the county is in Ottawa, so half of a half, in my opinion, would be 1/4. And so we're paying half on the city, and our city citizens are paying also to the county. They're also contributing toward the county's half. So it seems like to me something's off here. We're paying 3/4 in my numbers. Unless I'm wrong, someone correct me here. But I'm saying we're paying 3/4 of this budget because
Well,
we happen to live in Franklin County.
And it might even be more, because what's Wellsville actually pay?
I don't have the actual amount.
It's not a quarter.
No.
It is not.
Yeah.
And it also could be that the assessed valuation in Ottawa is greater than a half of the entire county. So I'm having a problem with this one this year, and we'll have to discuss this maybe later, but I'm not in favor of half, let me put it that way. This mayor is not.
Our schedules just did not line up in order for them to be here to discuss the budget part. And so they wanted to wrap the budget discussion in with their annual report for you. So we're hoping for next Wednesday as an opportunity for them to be here.
Okay, I hope so. Good.
Okay.
At least they'll know that we want to talk about this.
Sure.
They've been forewarned. Okay, thank you very much for that.
Mm-hmm. The next fund to discuss is the auditorium. And our director, Tiffany Evans, is, I believe, still online and available for any questions related to this budget. The OMA was built in 1918, opened its doors in 1921, and you're aware of all of the awesome events that we're able to have at the auditorium and just how much we're able to accomplish with really a very small budget for this fund overall. Charter Ordinance 1397 allows for us a maximum of 2 mills for operations plus 1 additional mill for capital improvements. We don't and have not ever used that full maximum allowance. In fact, what we're proposing this year, I believe, it sits around 1.7 as a mill, and I believe that's probably the highest it's been for the auditorium overall. The revenue is generated from rental fees, ticket sales, sponsorships, concessions and merchandise sales, and property taxes. And their expenditures are, I would say, offset by a lot of the volunteerism that happens at the venue in order to save us some cost of needing additional employees to run all of those events that we're able to offer. The building maintenance and equipment replacement over the last year, what's expected this year and next year, is really our biggest challenge. And so you'll see in this next slide, we have indicated a couple of things that have hit us with building repairs in general. So in this last year, we tackled about $38,000 in an air handler repair, which luckily we were able to roll into and wrap into our the intent of the bond issue that we issued in 2022, and we'll wrap that into the boiler replacement cost. And then in addition to, it's still required for us to do a fund transfer of $35,000 from the either the general fund or the CIP fund to be able to offset some of those repair costs for the facility this year. In addition to next year and the years beyond, we know that there are multiple air units that need to be replaced, that they have not been replaced in the past, as well as just some general maintenance, even or upkeep or maybe a refresh to the basement and that part of the building. And as you'll recall, we just did a major refresh to our upstairs and our auditorium space.
Excuse me, I had a question on the 24 revised revenue. Other revenue was $53,500. That's quite a jump up from the previous year. I loved seeing that, but do you know what that was attributable to?
I'm sorry, where are you?
On the 2024 revised, on the revenue, other revenue was $53,500. That was quite a jump up from the adopted.
The very bottom line.
Oh yes, revenue. I'm so sorry.
Could Tiffany possibly?
Tiffany, do you have that in front of you?
I think you're muted, Tiffany.
We gotta hear you.
There you go.
Sorry, friends, technology is a struggle, working remotely here. I don't have that form in front of me, unfortunately, but let me see if I can pop over. I know, is that where we have some extra donations coming in, Melanie?
Yes, it is. I'm sorry. So I was able to pull up the detail. I apologize, Tiffany. So it would be the combination of the additional donations, and that's about 17,000 in other revenue, our miscellaneous revenue, and then it includes the transfer from the general fund of the 35,000.
Okay, great. Good job on that. And the other one I had too on the question was on the capital expenses for the proposed budget 2025, 83,775.
So this is where we, this includes in that detail that was in the packet, that includes our undesignated stability outlay for capital improvements, which in the past has been a reserve for future improvements, and that we were able to include a $51,525. And if you look at the fund balance at the next year for 2026 at the very top, you'll see that that's intended to roll over as a beginning fund balance for the next year.
Okay, good. I see it now. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. I know that's confusing, and we'll find a way to split those out a little bit better.
That's all right.
On this screen, actually, you can see the year-ending cash balances continue to go down in a downward trend, and our expenditures continue to go up, which you would expect with this type of venue. And the challenges include, a maximum amount that you can charge for a ticket for certain types of events, and the rising cost of not just the venue itself, but the events that we're able to book. And in addition to that, I might just mention, I know that our director of the venue is doing a lot of work to capture the information for what can we do better, how can we better price out our events, and trying to really working hard on that bottom line. Even with all of that action, there's still going to be another conversation that's needed about bottom line and cash balance for this fund. It's inevitable that we'll need to either make another transfer from somewhere to support the bottom line, or we need to talk about another revenue source for this venue, or an increase in the meeting using the opportunity for that maximum mill levy or mill rate that's opportunity under the charter ordinance.
Melanie, do you know, for like concessions and stuff like that, since they are allowed to sell alcohol, is that under other revenue, or does that go under charges for service? Do you know where that would?
1 second. It's a miscellaneous. It's actually under charges for service, the line item 35104 for alcoholic beverages, and we've estimated 3,500 in revenue. Anything else on the auditorium? Okay.
Looks like no Taylor Swift this year.
Still a goal. All right. Oops, so sorry for that. In our library discussion, library is another fund that is it shows as a budgeted fund for the city of Ottawa, and it appears as part of our total mill levy, but it is not controlled by us or the governing body. The city acts as a conduit, so we receive the ad valorem taxes that are assessed for the library, plus their motor vehicle taxes, and then we remit that back to the library for use in their budget. The charter ordinance allows a maximum of 10 mills for the library, and their library board determines the annual budget, as well as there is a page within here that shows you that the budget that's being presented here does qualify them for the state grant again this year, which that's always a target. And there's 2 opportunities to be able to qualify for that. And there's a calculation page so you can see that if you're interested. And Terry Chartier is here to give us a little update on their budget overall. You can go down your revenues and then your expenses are next.
Good afternoon, everyone. You have received the spreadsheet that you see on the presentation. You've also received the memorandum, and you've received a pie chart that represents our breakout of our cardholders for through June of this year. I want to just touch base on a few of the items on the memorandum. Ottawa Library has always been good stewards of taxpayer funds. We have been a partner to the City of Ottawa for 152 years. And as Melanie mentioned, we do have to meet one of 2 state test requirements to get the funding from the state. Nichols also makes that a requirement to get the funding from Nichols each year. And we have to answer to Nichols and their requirements for our accreditation each year. We also have to meet the City of Ottawa requirements of being at 10 mills or less. This year, we are presenting a flat, even budget at 8.589, and we are committed to excellent staffing at the library. We also, back in 2011, when I became interim director, and then 2012, when I became director of the library, I assumed the role of director and kept my previous position as business manager. So I am covering 2 positions for the Ottawa Library and continue to do that. So that saves the taxpayer money, and that saves on our mill levy limit. We have a capital improvement fund. Some of the things that we're looking at in the capital improvement fund, of course, is a new library building in the future. We also would like to increase our homebound delivery service, and we would like to have a future bookmobile. We have an endowment fund, which is a 501c3 organization, and we have a Friends of the Ottawa Library, which operates to support our library and has done so since 1973. They are also a 501c3 organization. They totally support our summer reading programs for all age levels. They have taken over the Franklin County Literature Festival, and without the Friends of the Ottawa Library and the library staff, that would not be continuing in our community, so that's a great benefit. They operate a bookstore down the alley from us at 209 East 2nd Street. They are open Mondays 1 to 2:30 and the first and third Saturday 9 to noon. Do you have any questions for me?
Great. Any questions of Terry?
No, Terry, I really appreciate that you put the Nichols stuff in here, because I know that I've asked about that the last few years, so thank you so much for including that. And then I also wonder if under city revenue, the which is I think actually county revenue, but motor vehicle tax, it seems as though, and I recognize that you have to be really careful about how you budget for that, but it seems as though the last few years, I'm wondering what your budget versus actual is on that, because it seems as though it's increasingly higher than actually what you're budgeting for. So is there a way to get closer to the number that you think you can actually?
Well, I do not put that number in there. The county gives me that number.
Okay.
It's based on their estimate.
Okay. Is there any way to see like what your budget versus actual was in the last? I mean, I guess I could pull it up because I have prior, but it seems as though it's, you know, several $1,000s higher every single year, and so.
Well, I don't know. Actual in 2022 was 106,832. I'm not sure what we budgeted.
Mm-hmm.
Actual in 2023 went down to 91,935.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, I don't set that number.
You're stuck with what you're given.
Yeah.
I get that. It's just a question about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can certainly get you those numbers, so.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And as a taxpayer myself, thank you for taking on 2 jobs in one. So I'll just say my personal thanks to you for that. I know you do good on either one of them, so being able to split that up between yourself, that's a good job. But good, I think you've done really well, good work at this. I just have always impressed with our library, how it's expanded the horizon for kids on so many levels compared to what it was when I was there. And it's a great thing you're doing for our community. So I'm sorry your outdoor event got rained on, but it looks like you still went forward with it. So that was a good sign, the determination you all have on that. Baseball players don't like rain. They go down in the dugouts, but you guys stayed out there and did it. So congratulations to you for that. But anyway, I think you got a good budget here.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Terry, do you guys have someone on staff just kind of looking at grants? Obviously, grants ebb and flow based on.
Yes.
Do you guys does staff kind of find those and write those?
So we have several people on staff that write those. We have one person that's dedicated to researching those for us and bringing those to different departments. There are some standing grants that we apply for every year and usually are lucky enough to get those.
Thank you.
That's great. Any more questions of Terry? Guess we're good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Good job. Next, we talk about debt.
All right. So our debt service fund, as you're aware, ensures our adequate funding for our annual general obligation bond payments. For 2025, 16.5% of the outstanding debt is supported by property taxes. The remaining 83.5% is supported by transfers from other funds. And to elaborate on that, that means that's a transfer from a fund in which that debt is intended for. So, for example, actually, I'll show you a chart here in just a minute. And the decisions that we need to make are for some of the callable debt or refinancing callable debt. That's just being good stewards of our dollars. We have not actually had the opportunity in the past years either because the rates weren't good enough for us to refinance, or we didn't have anything that was in a position to be paid off early. However, I'll show you here in just a second that what this looks like going forward. So here's just a breakdown by percentage of the types of debt that we have. So 24% of our debt is related to our proximity park and wastewater plant project or improvements. 21% of it is for our electric fund, 17% for our water fund, for water fund projects, 12.5% for stormwater projects, and so on. So that 16.5% of the $19 million is related to projects that are city at large and supported by those ad valorem tax dollars.
So make sure I understand that right on that one. Go back just one there. Okay, so 24% of the proximity park on the wastewater treatment plant debt. That's 24% of the 19 million.
Yes.
We're not talking debt service. We're talking about the actual debt.
Total debt.
Total debt. Okay, got it.
When you say debt service, and you're talking about annual debt service, or
Well, I didn't know if this was just total debt dollars, right? Not the payments. We're talking 24% of the 19 million is attributable to the proximity park and wastewater treatment plant.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
This is a look at what our total debt payments annually look like over time. So this is all debt that we currently have on the books. And as you can see, it does significantly reduce over the next couple of years and then continues in a downward trend. Now, some of our projects that we have planned will cause additional debt to be added here, but I think this is just a good opportunity to take a look and see what it looks like over the next couple of years. And anytime that we go out for a new bond issue or we have a conversation with a rating agency, these are the types of things that they're looking at, is that we have that are how our debt matches up with our revenues and our population and our per capita costs. Do you have questions on the debt fund?
What questions anybody have? I know years ago we borrowed some money when rates were lower. We haven't borrowed for a while, which is a good plan, I think. I'm glad we kind of took that seriously when we felt like rates were going higher. We took a little more of an aggressive approach at borrowing when we could and when rates were lower. And we're getting the benefit of that now, obviously, with what we're paying down too. So that's a good sign. Anybody have more questions of Melanie for this?
On the transfers in, do we try to kind of generally match those percentages for where those come from?
We matched them exactly to the debt payments. So when you look at the detail sheets, if we were to show you our detailed listing of what the payments are for each one of the debt issuances by funding source, the amount of debt that's being paid, principal and interest for the year from, let's use electric as an example, the amount we're paying in principal and interest this year, that's the amount we're going to transfer from the electric fund this year. So that's how we budget for those. The transfers in should offset what the transfers or what the principal and interest payments are being made.
Thank you.
And I do want to point out that by our debt capacity is roughly 46 million, and we're at just over 3, so we've got significant capacity to show that we're really running super lean with respect to our debt and our capacity.
Great.
Yeah,
I
great
was thinking our debt too at 19 million, that number, whatever that was, and we've got our reserves and our idle cash about that number, and to think that we don't, of course, there's no need to pay it off early because we're earning more on those deposits than we are loan interest rate on these, and so obviously we're in a good position with that.
We also wouldn't be able to use that cash. It's not a one-for-one type of amount, whereas it's some of those dollars are restricted balances, fund balances. So, but
I didn't state that correct.
But good point.
Just the numbers were comparable.
Sure.
And the fact that we're earning more on our deposits than the debt, that doesn't always happen that way, which is good. A good position to be if you're a consumer, not a lender, but a consumer.
All right, the general fund is typically where we spend most of our time talking. This is actually a graph that we showed you this last time. So the conversation we have is probably largely centered now around those ad valorem taxes and about 31 or 32% of the total revenue that comes into the fund. This is just another way of looking at all of the detail that's in your packet. It's a lot of information. I don't expect you to read what's on the screen here. It's a lot of small print, but it does tell you how those services hit the overall expenditures for the general fund and what departments and what functions we're attributing those to. This is our summary that we've been showing you for each of our funds. So our financials just in as summary categories for both general revenue and general expenditures overall. A couple of items of note here. We do show that undesignated stability LA. I did pull it out specifically for this fund. That varies from year to year because it depends on what those revenues look like and what expenditures have become our priority for the year. Our target goal is always to start the year with $2 million at a minimum. It's difficult to show it on a page like this because we don't know exactly where we're going to land this year. We know that we've worked really hard to nail that down, but we do know that we will start the year with at least $2 million each year. So that's why you see the numbers structured the way that they are. We did, and at the end of 2023, we didn't make as many transfers as we have in the past out of the fund. So we did roll over 3.1 million to the top of 2024. So that's why you see the revised column with that different beginning fund balance amount. And beyond that, the rest of the devil is in the details, of course. So all of the detail information I know came to you rather late for the packet, the detail line items and such, but we will have an opportunity to answer any of those questions that you have related to that. And if we can't answer that today, we absolutely can answer that at our next meeting or beyond. But I do want to cover a couple of highlights from this budget. In the budget is included the addition of a marketing position and the addition of a seasonal employee for the fleet maintenance shop, some policy change to our Kelly Day overtime compensation, and the addition, I marked it here as an additional firefighter position, but really the goal here is to be able to send more personnel out on each event. And so it may be a scheduling piece, it might be another floater position, it might be something that gives us the opportunity to do that, and that's what this number represents here. And then also enhancing our employee education reimbursement program. 6,000 is not the total, but that would be what we're adding to the program overall. Oops. Additionally, under operating costs and professional services, we have budgeted for the quality of life sales tax renewal in 26, the R&R mailing, which has continually been pushed out, that will become our responsibility. That's the mailing to all of our residents between next week on July 20th and when we actually are able to approve our budget, the statement that each one of our residents get, notifying them of public hearing dates, mill rates, all of those things. And then a city website upgrade to be able to better relay our information to our residents. Document storage software, which would be used across all departments are all funds, so we've split that. You'll see that impact to the general fund column in the green. So some of them are a little less than the total cost. Some slide repair, parking lot asphalt at the law enforcement center, replacement of HVAC units at the fire department. Then we have a few items under operating equipment here. Then we have all of the transfers. And what you will notice on this list is not a list of vehicles and equipment that would be replaced. And the reason for that is our staff is in the middle of compiling and reviewing all of our vehicle and equipment inventory and then prioritizing replacement over the next several years so that we can determine exactly what needs to be replaced and when, and determine what those factors might be, and then prioritize it. So what we've done here instead is budgeted for a transfer to our equipment reserve so that we can start making those prioritization purchases. One of the things we've run into over the past couple of years, especially these last couple of years, is that we might budget, let's say we budget $50,000 for a vehicle, but the reality is it's probably going to come in at $65,000 or $62,000. We don't know when we're budgeting 6, 8, 10, 12 months in advance. So by doing this, we can reprioritize at the top of the year, determine when and how much is needed for those vehicle replacements or equipment replacements, and then proceed from there. Additionally, there's a transfer there to our CIP fund for capital projects. Some of those capital projects will include repairs or replacement or upgrades or upkeep of our existing city facilities. But some of that may also go towards those general projects that we've seen in our CIP that need to take place over time. Some of the bigger street repairs, some of the, as that fund starts to accumulate a balance, it would give us the opportunity to start knocking out some of those projects that would otherwise be considered city at large projects. The other transfers that are in here are all transfers that we've had in the past. It does assume a level funding for our community service fund. So I know you heard from our community partners, and they did present an increase to some of those budgets, and some of them had requested increases there. We have not included those increases in the budget that's been put before you. We're recommending a level funding there. And then one other large item I think that we should definitely mention is we've talked a lot about the ability to add to our street maintenance program out of the special highway fund. And so one of the items listed here is to redirect those highway connecting links funds that come into the general fund annually, and that's about $54,000 each year, and redirect those back to the special highway fund. So the impact is a reduction in revenue in the general fund, but an increase in revenue to your special streets fund to assist with that maintenance. So maybe annually, instead of the $250,000, we could instead budget the $300,000 and go from there.
On those items there, so we're going to be talking about these in more detail next time.
Not necessarily. We can if you have specific questions. We didn't provide to you the request detail from all of the departments, but we have sat down and had individual meetings with every single department and reviewed their request and the needs. And we have actually eliminated or set aside lots of requests until we can determine where funds might become available. We've asked for them to go out and seek grant dollars, and then we've set some aside to be determined at a later date and time, specifically if they're project related or equipment replacement or vehicle replacement.
Okay, well, I'm just looking at that first, the marketing position. 10,000 impact the general fund. The other 50,000 from which fund would that come?
All four. I apologize. I thought I mentioned that there. It's all four of our main funds, so water, sewer, electric in general. Only 10% is coming from the general fund. You'll see a larger percentage from the electric fund, and then a smaller percentage then again from water and wastewater. And again, because a lot of that communication with the public is about our electric distribution and outages, whatnot, and so that's how we allocated that position cost.
Well, just that position, I personally don't think we need that. I think our IT department's doing a better job, picked up a lot of the slack we've been missing on marketing, so I appreciate everything IT department's been doing on that. I don't think we need that position myself. Other commissioners, we can
I will pleasantly disagree. And it's not about the IT department. I think the IT department does an amazing job. I think it's about enhancing what we do about telling the story for the city. We are one of just, I gotta tell you, just a few cities that do not have somebody that does this position. And it's not necessarily called a marketing position, it's called many other different things. In the city of Pittsburgh, they have 4 people that do this job. If you watch, they do a great job at saturating their community with great information. And I think it's very important.
And one thing that we can consider too is it's budgeted at this point in personnel, but should we decide to down the line do a marketing program or a combination thereof, I mean, we can apportion it at the time. We opted to, based upon the commission priorities as far as quality of life and better telling our story and bringing in outside people, as well as maintaining the responsible mill levy and reinvesting in our infrastructure and through improved streets and asset management plans, etc. We opted to, at least for now, put it into personnel. So at some point, if we wanted to look at redirecting that, we could. But we certainly will consult the governing body one way or the other before we proceed with anything.
I just don't see it as a full-time job still. I can't see it that every day for 8 hours they're going to be doing some kind of promotion, and I just can't see it as a full-time job. That's my opinion.
Well, and I could be wrong, but, and Paul and Matt, you can shake your head yes or no. I don't think either one of you have a marketing degree. No? Okay. So what we're looking for is things that and I agree, IT department does a great job. But what we're looking for are things that they don't even know what we're looking for, what we don't even know what we're looking for. That a person with a marketing degree knows what we're looking for and can tell us, and then at that point, sell our story like we've never done before.
Okay.
I would be, highly hesitant if we took that out. I'm against it, period.
I agree. And on that 60,000, is that including employee benefits? Is that full? Because 60,000 seems really low for any position when you start rolling in benefits and everything as well. That the salary, to just spitballing, would be in upper 30s or 40s with.
Yeah, I can't answer that off the top of my head, but you would be correct.
Okay.
I will go back and look at that. Usually I wrap that into the number, so if I've made a mistake there, I'll make sure I'll adjust that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I guess on the, it's kind of from the revised 24 and then also 25, what the management analyst is, or what that position.
Yeah, that has historically been an allocated position in the fund itself, but some years it's been budgeted, some years it hasn't. It hasn't recently in the past year been budgeted, but that's something that we've included with respect to adding some additional capacity through graduate students to come in and assist us in helping structure our kind of more comprehensive strategic process and flow. Whether or not it's actually going to end up being a budget analyst, an assistant to, or a different type of structure remains to be seen at this point. But much like the marketing position, it's included there for now, and then would be targeted to its specific purpose once we begin to fully implement this strategic alignment process across all departments.
I might mention there that that's a conversion of funding that was already included as the position for the assistant city clerk or deputy city clerk. And internally, we had made the discussion to convert that to more of this type of a position instead, and to rearrange the priorities for what that position might look like.
I know that in the time that I've been on the city commission that there has definitely been, I can count 3 or 4 definitely that there were. And I don't know that they were called management analysts, but we did have those individuals, and they brought great value to the city.
Do you have other questions about the general fund specifically? And we can circle back if you want to move on to what the mill rate impact looks like and then come back to maybe more conversation about that, or even at our next meeting, or direct us to bring back more information if you like.
As kind of just a general question, beneath licenses and permits on our general fund revenue, there's the two lines, there's fees, or
Just
fines
what
and
page?
fees. Oh, sorry, 70. It's line 324 and then 327.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what's the difference on fines and fees and then fees and or permits and fees? Is permits
Sure.
and fees roll in community development building permits, and what is, I guess, what's the other fines and fees?
That is court, municipal court. So it should say that.
Okay.
I apologize. That's a great addition we can make to the description there. But yes, 324 is fines and fees. That is municipal court fines and fees. And then the court fees is 326. And then permits and fees for community develop or neighborhood services is 327. And then cemetery is 327.01.
Thank you.
We will add that description in there. Thank you for noting that. Anything else on the general fund for now?
And you said on that intergovernmental, it's not hitting this because you're shifting it before. I know you'd had it.
Yes.
It was on one of those. Okay.
Yes.
So,
So
it's not
I'm
coming
still
into general and out. It's
right. We'll just directly deposit it to the other fund, because what happens is if it comes in and then you have to transfer it, you have to actually budget authority to make the transfer because it's considered an expenditure. Some revenues you can do this with and some you can't, but this one we would be able to just directly deposit to the special highway fund.
okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions there? No? Okay. Okay. So mill rate is always the hot topic, and this is where, you know, in the past they've always said, hey, budget what you need for property taxes to support your city services in your budget. But the reality is this is what it comes down to, and this is what our residents feel the most impact from. So this is really just a revision of what we, not a revision, but this is a similar chart, what we've talked about in the past, and what our proposed mill rate is for 2025 is level with 2024. So as you can see in that little table to the right, that's a total city mill levy of 44.844. There's a very slight difference between city and library between the 2 years. It's just how the numbers played out in the state budget form. And then the graph down to the right-hand corner shows what the impact is of the library and city services against the total mill rate for each of those years. This is actually a new something we put together that uses the house that we discussed at our previous discussion, and the table to the left, really the whole left hand side of the screen, is related to the current mill rate. Everything on the right, we've focused on only the city portion. I want to make sure that that's very clear. Everything on the left is related to what it currently is, and those are established mill rates. What is on the right is what we're proposing to you, and we broke it down by function. And so really the total here, the amount that we're discussing here is we took the $150,000 house that we just talked about in the current mill rate, and we said, let's assume that house had an 8.4% increase, because that's what our assessed valuation went up. So that's an average, on average, that percentage. We added that to the $150,000 house. That makes it a $162,600 appraised market value home. And then the assessed value becomes $18,700 instead of the $17,250. So the taxes for the current year would go from $2,810.73 to $3,046.99. There are a lot of assumptions made here. This would assume that every single agency that is on this tax statement, this billed home, keeps an exact mill levy as 2024. We have no idea where they're going to land. We don't even have their public hearing dates yet or what they're proposing. But this is just to kind of give you an idea. If we were to increase that amount of taxes because we're keeping a level mill rate for the city of Ottawa, it would increase our portion of that total tax would be $677.96 for this one home. And we would break that down by the functions that you see on the right. So annually, that would mean that you're contributing an additional $216.41 of that $677, and then streets, parks, neighborhood services, all the way down to debt service. So that's how we broke it out for our city services, just to give you an idea of what that impact might look like for that increased tax bill for a resident with a $150,000 home this year.
That'd be great to have. You can send this to us, I assume, right? Send this to us. We can have it in front of us when we go talk to the people.
You know, as long as the rest of our discussion is that you would like to keep this mill rate. If you're really thinking about something different, I would rather that we make those adjustments, and then that would be something that you could distribute, only to not cause confusion.
Okay.
And of course, it's up to you how you want to distribute that information. But there is a lot of conversation yet to be had.
Well, okay, that's
presumably.
And the second thing too, I know we've had some people complain about a $150,000 home. Do we know, is that the median priced home in Ottawa, or do we have any way of knowing that?
No, I used last year, I believe it was 167,000 was our median value. And I used 150,000 because that was an easy round number. And so that's why I chose it. And then, adding the increase on top of it, I realized that's not going to be the case for everyone. We could have picked 100,000 or a 500,000 and everything in between. And we're happy to make those calculations for whatever that number that would best be utilized by our residents would be.
Okay.
This is just a snip of our state budget form then. So what you can see here is the R&R, the revenue neutral rate is all the way to the right, and it's in very light blue on this screen. But if you wanted to be a level with your R&R, then we would need to come down approximately a half mil decrease would be about 73,000, and a mil would be about 146,000. But to keep an overall R&R, you would need to decrease your likely your general fund or your auditorium budget by about $180,000 in order to meet the revenue neutral rate. And then everything is fairly consistent there. General fund's consistent. The debt service, because we've paid off some of the city at large, it reduced, so we were able to use some of that to bolster the auditorium fund and that cash balance there, and then a level mill rate for the library as well. So the overall mill rate proposed is a level mill rate. And just as a reminder for everyone in this room and anyone who might be listening, this is only an estimated mill rate. Once the final valuation comes out in October, something we don't have any control over whatsoever, that will adjust this final rate, not just for our entity, but for all. So with that said, do you have questions about our mill rate that's being proposed, the budgets overall? Are there things that you'd like for us to bring back to you at the next meeting?
I guess, a lot of this is good information. I got to pour through it myself, just kind of look over it, not necessarily line item veto ideas, but I'm going to look over this some more. So we'll discuss this again, I'm sure, at the next meeting.
What's your deadline?
For the next meeting, we absolutely have to determine whether or not you will exceed the revenue neutral rate, and then also direct us to publish a notice for the public hearing. Now, we do have a little bit of time in order for you to direct us to publish that notice. So after we fill out the form for Franklin County, typically it asks you what your maximum mill rate would be, so we can determine that next week at that meeting. And then we could have further conversation if you see fit. Beyond that, we would definitely need to publish our public hearing. We just have to give 10 days notice. We like to give a lot further notice, but that includes all of the funds, and so we would want to make sure that we can publish at whatever rate we'd like to, whether it's this or or less. But then you cannot go above those rates.
Right.
Whatever you publish,
Always bring it
the mill
down.
rate, you can always bring it down.
Very good. Okay, thanks, Melanie. Appreciate it. Let's talk about it again next week then. We've got some comments, I guess, but Sarah, you want to do your comments first? Or
Do you want to vote on
Yeah, we need to talk about that. I was going to get to that pretty soon here. You ready now?
before we do comments?
All right. I know Sarah's got to leave here pretty soon here, so let's talk about our Ottawa Memorial Auditorium candidates. Anybody have any questions or concerns?
There's 2 openings and there's 2 applicants. And I don't believe we have additional applicants that are coming forward to interview.
We have 3 to begin with and 1 in returning.
Okay. Very
It
good.
seems like to me that we have 2 excellent individuals who want to volunteer their time, so I say that we put them on the board.
Let's do. Anybody else?
And I agree. I don't think we're just filling 2 positions with 2 people. They both seemed eager and good applicants for those positions.
I agree. Is that a motion, Sarah?
Yes, it is.
And
Second.
There's a second down here. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 I think opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're good. All right. And anything else, Sarah? You gotta leave right now?
Yeah, I am going to exit here in just a minute just because I've got another appointment. So, but thank you. Here's the thing, Melanie, Director Landis, I know you work tirelessly on it and you try and condense your comments down. And so I just want you to know from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate all that you do, putting it in there and putting it into like a really understandable document for somebody who doesn't necessarily balance her checkbook all that often. So, I mean, I know, I don't know exactly what I have in there right now. I'm just saying, I could, but I don't. So I appreciate the fact that you make it manageable for those who don't necessarily eat, breathe, finances all the time. Thank you.
If you wouldn't mind, there is an incredible team of people here that are
Absolutely.
doing a lot of this
Absolutely.
work across
You and
all
your
of the
entire
departments.
team.
So, yes, thank you.
Good job. Anything else, Sarah?
No, thank you.
Okay. You need to leave, so we still have a quorum, so if you're departing, that's okay. We can still, we're not going to do any making decisions after this. We'll have the comments by the city manager. How about? Brian? And we'll come back to commissioners later.
Honorable Mayor and Commissioners, I'll make it very brief. We'll just have a couple of slides, quite literally. Want to remind you of the Rise and Shine Eggs and Issues speaker breakfast coming up. So if you're interested in going, just get with Glora or myself so that we can RSVP. If you haven't already done so, please. And want to highlight our 3 newest employees. We have Bryce Spillman with Streets, Ernest Mays with Streets, and with our utility crew, Francisco Guerrero.
Fantastic.
And then upcoming items for our July 17th meeting, we'll have continue discussion and review of the proposed 2025 operating budget, resolution for a revenue neutral rate, exceeding, and then review of our active capital improvement projects, as well as our recognition of our employees, John Thompson Jr. and Chad Pickert, who graduated from the Emerging Leaders Program. And we'll have the finance report. The chicken ordinance is tentative at this time, which again was just a consolidation of the various actions that we had taken and condensed it into a single piece, so that if you were trying to ever go back and put it together as far as the evolution of the legislation, you wouldn't have to go to the different items. It would all be condensed into one. And then we'll have a brief executive session for non-elected personnel.
Okay. Any questions of Brian? We got him?
Thank
Great.
you.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Go to commissioners' comments. Commissioner Crowley, do you have anything to say?
I have none.
Okay. Commissioner Clayton.
I'll just add a ditto to Melanie's staff, the whole finance department and all staff in the departments for the work they do. There's thousands of numbers in here and it's a lot of good reading. And I was going to joke when you said something about a checkbook. I was like, what's a checkbook?
Come on.
I've heard of that. And then also on the Ercoupe thing, I think there's so many events that happen in town, and so many different community calendars and things that people just don't know about. I think it's amazing that people came into town and there was 120 hotel nights stayed. you know, by something that most people probably don't even know about. It's out at the airport, kind of out of sight, out of mind, and just kind of those amazing benefits, the funds that brings into the community. I think that's terrific. And then on the bishops, I know they had to step out because we've been here quite a while. But I do just want to reiterate, we've talked a lot about dogs. There's been discussion, and nothing with dogs has ever been getting rid of vicious dog, any type of ordinance around that. It's been more on working with Prairie Paws and kind of reframing from breed-specific ordinance to vicious dog, which would still cover situations like this and almost more stringently than we currently do.
Okay. Pro Tem Allen.
I have no comment.
Okay. And I've just got a couple myself. Of course, we had a great 4th of July. I'm glad we had a good fireworks display. Everybody seemed to be very happy. Actually, our fireworks display lasted longer than the one in San Diego. I don't know if anybody heard about this. San Diego had a malfunction. They all went off at once, and it was 30 seconds it was done. So at least we had a longer one than we could say San Diego, California. I will say this about the fireworks. We had a lot of people breaking the law, shooting off fireworks in town. I don't know if anybody's listening. You cannot do that. And I'm wondering, sometime we can discuss this before next year as a commission. Maybe we need to have a place in town for people to go to shoot them off legally, just to get it out of their system. Maybe the ball field parking lots, and maybe on July 3rd, not on the 4th when we have the fireworks display, but maybe July 2nd and 3rd, maybe in 2 days, 2 nights, if they want to go shoot them off at the ball field parking lot. And that way maybe it would eliminate those firework displays in our neighborhoods. So just something to be thinking about. Well, if there's another idea, I'd love to entertain it, but we've got too many people in neighborhood fireworks displays. That's illegal. You can't do that. And we need to fix this problem before next year gets here. So that's what I would say. I'm not a party pooper. I like fireworks, but they got to be done in the right place and the right perspective. And I think it's important for all of us to be aware of. Don't forget too, tonight at 7 p.m. is the election forum. We have different candidates in our area vying for positions. And so 7 o'clock p.m. tonight would be at the Franklin County Annex. And I think that's it. Announcements, I guess, City Commission meeting will be at 10 a.m. on July 17th. And July 24th, we got a City Commission meeting at 4 o'clock. And I'm not sure if we'll have it on the 31st or not, but we can talk about that another time. So if there's nothing else.